Hey everybody, it's BJ
And Patrick.
and we're back talking all things real estate. Give us a like and share, and let's get right to it.
Well, Justin Trudeau has the new announcement on Sunday of his how he's going to fix the housing crisis. So I'm going to show BJ the clip of his statement, and then BJ's going to react to that, and then I'll put in my 2 cents. And we want to know what you think. Is this going to solve affordable housing in Canada?
Here's something we can all agree on. We need more housing in Canada. But that the government should step up and make sure that housing gets built, that's where some people disagree. Take federal lands, land that's owned by the federal government that isn't being used anymore. The Conservative Party leader wants to sell it all off to make a quick buck. That does nothing for you. The federal government owns tons of land in cities and towns across the country. You could build a lot of homes on those lands, so that's what we're going to do. We're offering up that public land for housing. And we're not just going to sell it all to developers, we're going to long-term lease it.
All right, BJ, what are your thoughts?
Well, let me wrap my head around what we just saw here.
Yeah.
I just, I'm a little, okay. Let me come back to, a couple of things here. Number one, we've said this from the start. The solution, if we want to do something about and address the housing issue that's happening in Canada, the solution is make it easier for builders and developers to build and develop, reduce the government hoops that they have to go through to get approvals and get the process done, and have the government, if they're going to help, have them do it without any strings attached, and let them do what they're good at, because the government is not good at business.
Right. That sounds like get out of the way of the private market.
Right.
Out of the way of the developers.
Right.
The people that make that.
Yeah.
Of course, the federal government isn't the one that does the permitting process or like the development.
Right. Sure. So, but let's go back to what Trudeau is
Yeah.
saying, is that they have all this land that's not being used. And now he said the Conservative Party wants to sell it.
Yeah.
I don't know that, okay? I don't know what they've said or what their statement is on it, so I can't really address that.
Yeah, I got Pierre mentioned it in another interview that he wants to sell 6,000 ugly buildings not in use.
And I will sell off 6,000 federal buildings. Big, ugly, empty buildings will be sold off.
So it is a fact that I've seen that. Okay.
Okay, so I don't want to address that because I don't know the details of what their platform is on that. But the other side of it is, so what is the government saying? What is Trudeau saying? We're going to continue to own, the government, are going to own this land, and you, the person who wants to live here, we're going to give you a leasehold interest? Is
That's
that what's
correct,
going to?
yeah.
So that's basically what it is?
Yeah, and I think we could go down a long road of like, what are the pros and cons of leased property versus freehold property?
Yeah.
I think we'll save that for another video.
Yeah.
And then incentivizing local governments with I'm getting off track, but I was going to go back to your earlier point. So anyways, keep going. Sorry.
So I think my main thing is just comes back to this, is that's not going to solve the problem. The problem, the government needs to get out of the way. They're part of the problem, whether it's at a municipal level. Well, most of it's at a municipal level here, but certainly there's provincial issues and things like that. The government's not good at business.
Okay.
Right?
So I don't think leasehold is a completely like failed idea. There's leasehold properties here in Victoria, Vancouver Island, Lower Mainland. We've heard about it in the news. They've had some issues. It really becomes an issue when the lease starts to get close to its expiry date or renewal date. You know, you're sort of left unknown. But you know, they would set up like a 99-year lease.
Sure.
So you're really kicking the can of the risk down the road to the very end.
Sure.
Right.
And I get that there's some value in leasehold. I know I had a client once. He was in his 70s. He said, "Look, I don't have any family. I just want a place that I can live in Victoria." He had a place somewhere on the mainland. He said, "I just want a place I can live in Victoria, and I don't need to have any assets to leave behind." So it made sense for him. Okay, so I'm not saying that leasehold in and of itself is not bad, but we're talking about a leasehold property where you're dealing with the government.
The government is your landlord
Right.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. So the other kind of situations could be like a construction company owns the land. There's some buildings downtown like that, or it's indigenous lands,
Sure.
and it's a leasehold there as well, right? So there's different sort of landlords at the end. I've helped first-time home buyers get into the market, and it was a lower barred entry. Like, it was cheaper to get into that property, even with the additional cost of, well, those were strata properties, they were townhouses. And then a few years later, they were able to build up some equity. And we strongly support the idea of getting on the property ladder, building up equity. And maybe it's not what your parents had, maybe it's not what your expectations are, but a leasehold might be a really good way to get into a location at a smaller price, lower price, accessible price, build up some equity, and then move on to the next thing. So you can't get exactly your dream house or something like that right away.
Yeah. So before we get going down there, going back to what the Prime Minister said and the concept of leasehold and everything else, my thing is, we've seen the government, certainly this government, involved in some shady stuff. How's that? I don't think there's a nice way to say it. So I don't think, and you might be watching this and saying, yeah, well, builders could be doing something shady, or whoever could be doing something that's somehow untoward somewhere in the process or whatnot.
Sure.
But I just, I have an issue with that much government involvement. How's that?
That's fair. Yeah, there's probably some opportunity for, greasing some palms?
Well, not even that. I just think if you're
overpaying for something,
or if the
corruption.
government, there's all those things. Yeah, there's all those things
know.
too, for sure. But then what about, is the government just going to go become a landlord? Is that they're going to become one of their the mandates of what they do? They're going to start purchasing land, they're going to start developing land, and they're going to start basically running leasehold interest across the country?
Sure, that's fine. And this isn't a new idea. Since even other political parties have been selling off or leasing off land. You probably know who he is. He's a realtor. Yeah, bought provincial land right here in Langford. Right, maybe it's not federal land, but it's still like the province was looking to balance the budget, and they sold some properties across BC.
Yeah,
and my friend bought one of them. Right.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
right?
it was like,
my part of it is that the government now becomes the. I would just have to see more detail. It's easy to say in a broad brushstroke, we're going to do this, without actually indicating how are we going to do this.
I'll show the clips, because Trudeau doesn't just talk about leasing land. He does also talk about selling off land and leasing when the right opportunity happens.
Another thing we'll do is lease public lands instead of selling them off wherever we can. Leasing public lands to partners means that public lands stays public, and an affordable home, therefore, will stay affordable. I think that's something that every level of government can get behind.
Right. So, sometimes I'm going to jump into this pretty hard. In 2015, Justin Trudeau's election promise. Here we go.
Okay.
Inventory of all federal lands and buildings to what could be repurposed and made available at low cost for affordable housing in communities where this is a pressing need. This is September 9th, 2015. This is an election promise, whatever. 2017, this is in the budget. It's 200 and something pages. I'll show it to you on screen. Making more, so that's in their budget, making more federal lands available for affordable housing. 2023, so this wasn't long ago at all. Feds promise to build more homes on public land as fall mini budget looms. This is a November 7th, 2023 on CTV News. Now, in 2024. This is still before, or this could be on Sunday when he made the announcement. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't know what the date is exactly. Federal lands listed for housing as Liberals begin focused cabinet retreat. Oh yeah, he's probably here on Tofino doing that, right?
So they've been promising
you
this
see the
for
announcement.
9 years.
9 years, and this program has been gone on longer than Justin Trudeau, but he's been talking about this for 9 years. It reminds me of other politicians, David Eby, of recycling things that are already there and repackaging them as something new.
Yeah, and something they
which
thought
is complete. Yes, they're trying to take the credit for it.
Yeah.
And I cannot stand any of this. It's not a new idea. None of this will fix some kind of affordable housing. They're going to do exactly what you just said. They're going to become your landlord in some way, right? And they can keep making all these, we're going to keep doing everything we can. When it's at the end of the day, it's a personal responsibility of your own budget, your own wage. Like you directly in the free market are in control of that. And we saw this Pierre Poilievre video. Oh yeah, and Pierre talks about the exact same thing. He doesn't say leasing the land. He talks about selling it. But Justin Trudeau says the exact same thing in his announcement in was he in I think he's in Vancouver. I have a couple clips that I'm going to share with you.
I will sell off 6,000 federal buildings. Big, ugly, empty buildings will be sold off and turned into beautiful housing for our young people right across this.
They're both saying the exact same thing. It's like, I don't get it. And Eby, Premier Eby says the same thing. Let's use available local lands and build affordable housing on them. What, like taxpayer subsidized housing?
Right.
So it's going to be more taxes to accommodate expensive rent somewhere else.
Sure. So
I get it. People need help.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess my thought is, so are we essentially going to create a two-tiered society?
Well,
For when it comes, not society in general, but I'm talking about when it comes to home ownership.
well, it's going to be a caste system or class system. Premier Eby was talking about, now we're going off track, but it's still on affordable housing and government intervention in this. So there is going to be a two-class system. Like, they have an affordable housing project that they're building in Whistler because, like,
Affordable housing in Whistler?
It's the playground of the rich and famous, right? You're in the playground of the rich. Everything is expensive. Yes, people need to work retail. Yes, there's people that need to clean up, the hotels or the restaurants, or like there's all these things to make the wheels go around.
Yeah.
So let's, before we do it somewhere else, let's do it in the playground of the rich, right?
Okay.
So you sacrifice your living accommodations to live on couches and have eight roommates, or live in the parking lot in a camper in Whistler. It's been a while since I've been, but that's what it's like there, right? So you sacrifice for those things so you can go snowboarding on the weekends.
Right.
And now you expect the government now is going to accommodate so they can support the rich class and have subsidized taxpayer-funded housing to keep the wheels running in Whistler. Did I say that?
You said
I said that out loud. That's what I'm
'Cause
thinking.
My first thought is, why? It's just what I said. Why Whistler? If you want to,
It accommodates for the rich people that need to have those people doing the work there.
If you want to
It's
figure
certainly
out
two classes.
Yeah, if you want to figure out affordable housing, that's not the place to figure it out. That's like saying we need to do affordable housing in Oak Bay.
Right?
Right? Or we need to have some kind of affordable housing. Here's an even better one. We need to have affordable housing in the uplands.
What's the average price? I don't know what the median price is in Uplands because I didn't figure out. Uplands is part of Oak Bay. Oak Bay is 2.5 million, but it could range to 10 million pretty easy.
Oh, for sure. I was in a property in the uplands last week. Beautiful property. 5.99.
Yeah, so $6 million. Here we go, right? I don't think that's the place where you want affordable housing.
100%. So I'm saying that's like Whistler for affordable housing.
Exactly.
Right? So, You know what?
So can
We're
you tell
gonna-
the difference? Can you tell the difference between the liberal housing policies? Now, this is just one aspect of their policies.
Yeah.
From the
So-
Conservative Party.
Here's what I would say. I haven't seen the conservative part of it, but the one thing I would say that I just from what you've said is the conservatives want to sell some of this property, and Trudeau is saying we want to keep it all.
A sell or lease, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the only difference I see between the two.
And both of them are not new ideas
Not at all. No.
and won't make, I don't think, it might provide more subsidized taxpayer-funded housing for people. Yeah, it will. But it might fail like the Kitsilano project, where it's like, oh, this is subsidized by the province to be a below-market housing, and that ended up being at market or higher
Right.
than rental rates now.
Right.
So it's another failure.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to wrap it right there. Give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you next time.